Hey guys, hi YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. So my light broke. This has been one of my ring light things. And so now I'm using natural light. I hope you guys can see me. Talk about something that came up and I think it applies to me. So I was like, let me cover it a little bit and talk about it. So the video that I was scrolling on was this Nigerian guy that was saying that if you're an American woman, for example, and you're married to an African man and he does not take you to the village, okay, and do the official traditional wedding and do what they need to do, like culturally, it's nothing. You can have the courthouse wedding, the beautiful wedding in Hawaii. You can have all the photos and wonderful pictures of your wonderful life, but when you get to Africa, nobody recognizes that at all. So it got me really thinking about it, and it's so true. So I want to say that if you're somebody that's marrying, you're an American woman or a woman from a different part of the world, and you married to an African man, he has to make sure that he does the traditional wedding with you, because that means he recognizes, like, this is no games here, you know? They're serious about it. And so I was able to talk about this because I could tie it into my own situation and what I've seen with my brother and also my sister. They did the process, and I can kind of talk about it a little bit from what I saw. I still have yet more to learn because this is something that we would have to do with my husband as well. So I decided to talk about it. I could be wrong in some parts. I've been in the US most of my life, and I'm still learning things through my parents and all that. And my sister-in-law, I talked to her as well. So they kind of helped me kind of learn some stuff about it. So yeah. So it's a big deal. Marriage is a big deal in African cultures, I want to say. It's not something to be like, oh, here's a paper. It is something that's signaling to the village and the community that the two of you are joining. As you guys maybe have seen in my videos, I'm married to a Mexican man for the past couple of years. And we haven't done the traditional wedding. And that is something that we have to plan for. It is a process that can be lengthy. It's costly. And so it's not something to be rushed with. So you can go ahead and have your court wedding or do your little wedding in America or whatever country you're in, but make sure that you're going to plan for that in the long run. If your parents are a little bit older, it's a little bit rushed because, your time is running out and you don't want to be doing this. And because Africans have beliefs about things that can happen to you when you don't do things right. Okay. They have superstitions about things. So when you meet someone, you definitely have to tell them, if you are an African person, about what marriage entails. So when I met my husband after a couple of years of us being together, I already had it started discussing, the process. And my mom talked to him about it. So many people talked to him about it. And he was like, okay. So when you decide that you are serious about someone, they have to go and meet the parents. And it's in my language, I'm from Kenya, East Africa, and I'm from a Luo tribe, and it's called Aye. Aye, pretty much, I'll spell it here, it means I agree, I consent. So you would have to sit with the parents, not the mom, but mainly the dad. In my case, that's what I saw my sisters do with the dad. And my husband, for example, would have to bring somebody that he trusts, somebody that he knows well, and would have to sit down with my dad. Now it's a little interesting because my dad retired to Kenya. They're both in Kenya, so this thing can be done over Zoom too, and FaceTime and stuff like that. But you are literally gonna be going back and forth, negotiating a bride price type of thing, a dowry. So you go back and forth, and a lot of the payment is based on the woman, right? So if a woman is educated, a woman has no kids, a woman comes from a family that maybe is of blah, 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 these play a role in how much is going to be paid. And for me, it's something I'm not comfortable with because I believe that you cannot put a price on somebody, right? But it's a tradition, and a lot of people strongly believe in it to the point where it's like, you will be told that if you don't do it right, there's a lot of things that are curses that are going to come your way. So over the years, it's been done. That's how it's been done. It's not something that you want to go back and forth questioning. You just have to do it because it's almost like if you don't do it right, sometimes that blessing from your family member, from your parents, you may not get, kind of thing. And they're going to be walking around kind of almost embarrassed and ashamed that, oh, their daughter or whatever, or their son or whatever didn't do the proper things for the wedding. And it's something that they would be looked down upon in the village. So a lot of times people just do it and finish it with it so that they're able to get that covered and take care of it and move on with life. Because you never want to have something where you feel like your parents were You didn't do the right thing. I don't know. It's something you have to do. So once you sit down and you guys agree, this is where arrangements come in, where you have to, once you agree on the amount, you have to, I remember when my sister did it, after my brother-in-law met with my dad and everything like that with his brother, they talked, they came up with a price, and then my sister was cooking. And my mom cannot be involved in that cooking at all. My brother-in-law is from Congo, so they have a little bit of a different thing, but he did the whole thing in Kenya. They traveled and actually did the process. So I remember my sister cooking a lot and I was helping her, but my mom was not allowed to help because my mom would actually help with cooking and stuff when it's in Africa. Or she would have to do that once everything is settled and everything's finalized, that they've agreed and consented to this marriage and everything like that, and you taking their daughter, blah, blah, blah. Then you can move on to the next step where she's allowed to slaughter a chicken, a cow, and all that stuff, and cook a feast and everything like that. So that's what I remember. So it's something where it requires a guy that's very confident, that guy that's, can really speak up and be like blah 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 back and forth and really be confident in his place and being a husband. I mean, this is your chance, especially like if you're doing like a FaceTime or you're meeting with the elders. They're tough. So you as a man are going to sit there and you have to be able to say, you got to go back and forth and say, this I love this woman, we have a child, blah 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 blah, and this and that. Now, if you do have financial issues, it's something that can be arranged. Sometimes, some parents are not so caught up in that money. They're caught up in you really representing and being like, I'm good for your daughter, and you're going to take care of the daughter and blah, 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 blah. And eventually, you can work like a payment arrangement where you could slowly, kind of pay it off so that you can, and get like cows, like you can do one cow at a time. But what I've learned from it is that with this traditional weddings, it's just saying don't play. If you meet an African woman, you're not playing. You're not about to just be like, take her and just, oh, let's go do a courthouse wedding. Let's go do a wedding by the beach and call it a day. Oh, I have a marriage certificate, whatever I'm at, and call it a day. No, it makes you really be intentional about who you're dating. And if it's not serious, don't even bother bringing them to the parents. I did not bring anybody to my parents. Well, the first one I did was my first 6-year relationship. I did a video on it and everything like that. The guy I was with, he did meet my family, and we were thinking that we'd get to a point where we'd get married in the US and then eventually do that. But, things did not work out. But you don't play with that. You don't play with just dating and like playing around, because you have to be sure that this is somebody that you want to get involved with, and they're going to meet your parents eventually, and this is going to get serious. If it's not, just don't bother talking about it. Don't bring it up, and also don't rush the process. So once you do that, once you have all this settled and you've done the process, like doing the dowry payment, making sure that, for example, my husband would get cows for my dad. So you could easily send the money there and my dad would buy, find somebody that can buy the cows, and take care of all of that. Then we would have to travel to go there. And then my mom would do the feast and all that celebration. And this is a gathering of everybody realizing that and recognizing that the two of us are now married. Because if you don't have this, things can get a little messy and hard. I've had stories where somebody went and they were like, oh, this is my wife, or this is my partner, so and so. And they looked down like, who the heck are you? Because we don't recognize you. We didn't see a traditional wedding. We didn't know anything about you. So a parent can say, like my dad can say, they have not done the official African traditional wedding. So for me, I don't know who they are. You can call him and be like, hey, my name is Elizabeth. Like, hey, is Elizabeth and, my husband's name married? And he can say, no, they're not. Even if we have the marriage certificate, even when we have it, he wouldn't recognize it, because to them, especially older, the older generation, they're like, we need to see that. So this is signaling to the village, this is my partner. And when you want to do like building a house and stuff like that, there's certain things that you cannot do if you don't go through this process. Also, the interesting part that I learned is that the two sisters that are in front of me, if they want to get married and do this traditional wedding, they can't move on. They would have to wait until I do mine. So this is where it becomes kind of like, it could be rushed as well, because people are kind of like, we want to do our thing. What are you waiting on? So it becomes interesting, because I know there's people that have just really had a hard time. They went to Africa and pretty much were treated really badly because the village people were like, we don't recognize you. We don't know who, you're not married to us. You know what I mean? So, and those, if you believe in those blessings that parents give, some parents, if they pass away and they go to the grave, they're gonna sit there just going down really mad and at you if you did not do the process correctly. And you could leave all these things where things can be happening in your life and you feel like, oh my God, it's maybe because I never do the right thing, so that it's a guilt thing too. You could really feel some kind of way like, uh-oh. So in general, if you meet somebody African, and they don't do that traditional, eventually if you get married, whatever you're at, and they don't do this, I would really reconsider that, because that, it means they're not really showing you, and they're not really taking you to their community for you to blend in and join in. It's kind of like, yeah, you're married wherever you're at, but that's about it. And if anything ever comes up where you travel there, people are going to look down and they're going to have a lot to say, and people will talk. So you have to do the proper way. And so if you get involved with somebody from another part of the world and you're African, try to do your research and figure out what is the process like. What do you have to do? This is where you see people dressing up, some, like, for example, Nigeria, you see the beads, they have proper attire. Okay. You're not playing around, this is a big deal. And it's the community joining together and saying, we recognize your marriage. And it's giving you that good blessings and all that stuff. The parents are happy. Everybody's happy. This is our sister now. She's joining our community and all that. And there's other rituals that I'm forgetting that we have to do, but it's a big deal. So that's what I wanted to say, that it's a process. So don't take it lightly when you meet an African woman, and you want to get involved with them and just think that it's just that. I remember when I was in college, I would meet like Black American guys from here, and I would tell them there is a process to this. So if you want to get involved and you want to start dating me, this is something that you have to think about in the future. So keep that in mind. Yes, for us, it's going to take a little while because financially we have to get to a place where we can gather ourselves and do the process, even if we're doing FaceTime and then traveling later to go to my dad, or my husband sending the money, and then my dad would get the cows and take all that. But eventually we have to go to Kenya anyway to make sure that it's officialized and this is us, like we're married now, and the village recognizes that.